Alrighty, and welcome back to the Coltsology podcast. My name is Parker, and in today's video, we're going to be discussing how is Chris Ballard spending the Indianapolis Colts money. I feel like this is an argument I've been seeing quite frankly here on the channel in the comment section when it comes to people saying Lamar is too expensive, XYZ is too expensive, you name it. It seems to be a trending argument here on the channel. So like we try to do here on the channel, we try not to just give you regurgitated crap as far as just saying the same opinions on a different video. We try to, again, look into some of the details, look into the data, and make sure we're giving fresh information and a fresh take every time we're out here. So one of the big things I want to make sure I'll clarify about myself, I live in Indianapolis. I live in the city. So I can clarify as somebody who's been to pretty much all of these other cities. Indianapolis is not New York City. It is not Los Angeles. It is not Miami, and it is not Dallas. And what I mean by that is it's not one of those top tier free agency destinations where teams or players or free agents are going to want to go to. Odell is literally at Mavericks courtside games, trying to do whatever it takes to get that in on the Dallas Cowboys. We've seen in prior years, players want to go to LA because of the weather, the climate, the opportunities there. Same thing with New York, Miami, We've seen big name players. They would rather go to, these warmer, coastal cities, bigger markets than going to Indianapolis. So again, I feel like something Colts fans are consistently overlooking in their argument when they go, Parker, Lamar's too expensive. Well, here's the reality of the situation. And it's going to be a tough one for you. We aren't these cities, okay? We're going to have to pay up if we're going to get a big name player like this. Outside of drafting, players aren't beating down our door to come here as far as, Indianapolis is where I want to go, okay? Think about some of the biggest players on our team we've had to get. DeForest Buckner, we had to trade for him. Shaquille Leonard, we had to draft him. Big Q, drafted, right? Who's our biggest free agent acquisition you're going to come up with? I'm kind of stuttering right now, just trying to think of one, right? Most of our big name guys on our team that are making most of our money, we drafted him or we traded for him in DeForest Buckner, right? The guys we're spending money to, they had no choice. We either traded for him or we drafted him. They didn't pick Indy via their own, right? So again, for folks who might not live in Indianapolis and maybe have never visited, but you are still a Colts fan, welcome. We obviously want to make sure we're bringing as many Colts fans on board as possible. But something you need to keep in mind is we're not some of these big name cities that you're thinking of. We're a smaller market. And sometimes when you're a smaller market, there's disadvantages that come with that. And unfortunately, bringing in big name free agents or acquiring them, if you're not drafting them or just absolutely loading up the boat with money to the point where they'd be literally stupid not to come, sometimes you're going to have to get out of that thought process that, if the Colts really wanted to land somebody, they could. No, we're going to have to probably pay a little pennier than some teams to be able to attract them to come there. If I was a player and you said, hey, I need you to take a fraction, less but you're going to live in Miami and you're going to live, 5 minutes from the beach and, 75 degrees all day, every day. It's not going to be gray for 4 or 5 months of the year like it is here in Indiana and Indianapolis when we're in the winter months. I'll take a little bit of less money if I'm going to be in Miami, New York, one of these bigger markets. And I live in Indianapolis and I love it all the way. But it's just the reality of the situation. I feel like a lot of people, it's one of the points of the argument that they're definitely overlooking. I wrote down here, scared money don't make money, right? A lot of people are scared to spend money that's not theirs, right? Scared money don't make money. Sitting on the sideline and hoarding all this cash and again, hoping and praying that something good's going to happen. You're just going to be hoping and praying forever. That's what poverty franchises do. And to be honest, Mr. Ursa, you've said multiple times, we're an upper quartile franchise. I treat the Indianapolis Colts and I hold them to the standard of an upper quartile franchise, right? I'm a diehard. I got the flag behind me all day, every day. That's all I'm thinking about. Indianapolis Colts. What is it going to take to be better? All right. I gave an example of, again, where the city of Indianapolis has had to pay up. Look at DeAndre Ayton. We had to bring him in. He was a restricted free agent. We had to, negotiate with him, do all the heavy lifting just for the Suns to come in and match the offer, right? But again, the Pacers had to pay a pretty penny. They weren't getting him on the cheapest deal in the league. Yes, he was a former #1 overall pick in XYZ. But again, they had to pay a pretty penny to potentially bring in a guy like DeAndre Ayton. Do you think DeAndre Ayton would have maybe taken a little bit less if he was on the Lakers? Or on a bigger market, or maybe a state with no income tax where he could save a little bit, even more of his money? Versus Indiana, there's definitely state income tax. Trust me, right? They're going to take their pretty penny. Don't you worry, right? Let's keep it moving. People aren't beating down Indiana's door to come here, right? That's another thing I have written down here. It's just the reality of the situation. If you can think of the biggest name free agent we've acquired outside of, again, Stephon Gilmore, but we showed him a pretty penny bag, especially coming off a season with the Panthers before, and obviously we were able to flip him for a 5th pick. But again, like, how many free agents can you think of in recent memory that are beating down our door? Kenny Moore, we had to sign him, and he was undersized, right? He was a free agent. Sometimes you got to overpay. Okay, it's one of the sayings you hear a lot. You got to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. It's not your money. You're going to have to get comfortable with recognizing that the NFL is a growing brand. Every year they make more money. The teams generate more money. That salary cap goes up. They're able to turn that salary cap into paying their players more. Right? It's what they bargained for in their collective bargaining agreement. Right? If you look at our roster construction, this is where I want to tear some of your arguments apart. And again, this is where I'm going to need you, the viewer, to think outside the box. Take whatever bias, whatever preconceived notions that you have on the Indianapolis Colts and XYZ, and just listen to what I'm saying and ask yourself, does this pass the sniff test? And by the sniff test, does it make sense, right? If it doesn't, click off the video. It was nice having you here on Coltsology. We appreciate the viewership. But if you're serious about Colts football and you want to dive into the facts and look at the reality of the situation and hold your team to the same standard I do, that upper quartile, standard, let's get into it here. One of the things I like to dive into first here, this is an article from all the way back in 2015, but when you think about how you should be constructing your roster as far as what players are the most important on your team, what positions are the least important. We've talked about this a couple of times here on the channel as far as what positions are more important than others. If you think the quarterback is not the most important position on the field, again, this video is not for you. Go ahead and click off. Don't waste your time. I want to save you your time. Take it back. Click off the video. But again, if you recognize this is an obvious fact, keep watching. Let's keep it moving. Quarterback's the most important position, right? Clear, cut, dry. You should want to pay a franchise quarterback. If you're an owner, a GM, you should be like, oh, I can't wait to pay him. We got our guy. We got him, right? Not on this carousel that the Indianapolis Colts have been on for the past 5 or 6 years, having a different starting quarterback week 1. Okay. We've established quarterback as number 1. Number 2, most important position on the field is that pass rusher, that defensive end. Who's going to go after your quarterback and collapse that pocket and make it tough for him? Who's going to make him feel pressure, make him potentially flinch and, react too soon or react too late, and give those guys on the back end a potential to make a play? Who's going to be ultimately that pass rusher? We've seen guys like TJ Watt, the Bosa brothers, Myles Garrett, or et cetera, right? These guys are those designated pass rusher ones in the league. And you ultimately see them when you look at most teams' roster construction. They're going to be some of the more higher paid players on their team. Why? Because their job is to literally go after the quarterback. Again, I'm not going to argue with this. I'm very straightforward on this, right? Left tackle. Have you ever seen the movie The Blind Side about Michael Orr? In that movie, Sandra Bullock talks about, explaining what the left tackle position is to Michael. And she's like, you protect the quarterback's blind side, right? That's what your left tackle is. Most quarterbacks in the league are right-handed, right? So their left tackle is going to be their blind side and making sure that that's protected. You see guys like Trent Williams in the league and et cetera, potential or future Hall of Famers. I believe Tyreek Glenn was ours with Peyton Manning for the longest time. Saw him at his Hall of Fame introduction or his Colts Ring of Honor ceremony this year. That left tackle position, super important. Obviously, the Indianapolis Colts, we'll get into that here in a second. But again, it's an area that most people would say when you're constructing your roster, that left tackle position, very important. I promise we're getting to a point with all of this. Left cornerback. This one, I feel like 4 and 5, if you want to argue with me in the comments, save your breath. I'm not going to argue. You can flip 4 and 5 however you want. But number 4, who's stopping the other team's wide receiver 1? Obviously, the team you're going to be going against, they have that wide receiver 1. In our case, in our division, the Jaguars are loaded with Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, Evan Ingram. They got those weapons, especially down there in Jacksonville. Having those cornerbacks who are experienced and know how to take care of business on the defensive end, and are able to go stride for stride with these offensive guys who obviously know the route. In my personal opinion, cornerback is my favorite position in all of football. I think those dudes have to be cut from a different breed to be able to play that position. I think it's one of the most exciting positions to see in football. So again, who's stopping the number 1 playmaker on the other team? And then obviously number 5, I said they're interchangeable. Don't argue with me about it. Wide receiver 1, who's your number 1 target? Obviously on the Indianapolis Colts, I think most people would, without a doubt, say that's Michael Pittman Jr. No questions asked as of right now. We're not going to get too deep in the woods. I'm not going to go through every single player. I just want to go through the first handful here. Defensive tackle is going to be number 6. Obviously, on the Indianapolis Colts, we're paying Grover Stewart and obviously DeForest Buckner, who we traded for to bring in to our team as the number 6 most important position. Who's going to be, running up the middle, potentially putting their arms up, getting in the quarterback's face, and potentially, hopefully, causing that chaos and enough panic where the defensive end guys can kind of collapse the pocket again and make the quarterback make a bad decision, right? And then here, we don't need to get too into the woods, but I would argue like 1 through 6 for the most part should be pretty straightforward as far as most important positions. You got running back here, your second pass rusher, your middle linebacker, your tight end, free safety, and so on and so forth. Right tackle all the way down here at 13. Again, without getting too much into the argument there, when we look at left tackle for the Indianapolis Colts, the 2023 NFL league average as far as cap hit for left tackle, we talked about that being outside of quarterback and who's going to be rushing the passer, and the defensive end, left tackle is the most important position. Most teams in the league would also agree with that. Why? Because you can see that's where they're spending their money. The NFL average cap hit for left tackle, that position, is $14.9 million. Let's round that and just call it 15 because that sounds like a good number. Bernhard Raimann, who obviously came on in the back half of last year and looks like is going to be hopefully our long-term solution at left tackle, is under contract with us through 2025. So we have plenty of more years with him under contract. And this year is a $1.2 million cap hit. Again, the NFL league average paying at that position is $15 million for this upcoming 2023 season. The teams on average have $15 million allocated to the left tackle position on their team. We're paying Bernhard Raimann, our assumed left tackle starter, 1.2 as far as cap hit. So we're not spending money on left tackle. We know that for sure. When we look at pass rusher, this past season in 2022, the Indianapolis Colts spent approximately $13 million on Yannick Ngakoue. Obviously, as of right now in this recording, Yannick has not signed with a team and he has not signed with the Indianapolis Colts. We did bring in Samson Ebukam from the 49ers. He signed this year. He'll be a $5.3 million cap hit. Again, the average for defensive end, which is that position that he plays, as well as Yannick Ngakoue, in 2023 cap dollars, the average in the NFL as far as team spending and the defensive end position is $18.7 million. Obviously, the Colts have some younger guys on their team in early round draft picks in Dio Adengbo and Kwity Paye, and then obviously bringing in the free agency market, Samson. Again, we assume Samson's going to be our biggest, name outside of obviously our draft picks who are on really cheap rookie deals. But we're spending about 5.3 on our biggest, what we assume to be our biggest pass rusher. I'm in the camp. I don't think we'll be bringing Yannick Ngakoue back. But again, when you see other teams are spending approximately $18.7 million on that position, and we're spending again on our biggest name 5.3, and then everybody else is on a rookie deal, really not spending that much money at position number 2 of importance when we talk about defensive end and pass rusher. Okay, so again, I got the numbers here. I did the math. We have about a $13.4 million gap versus the average, meaning what we're spending on average versus what the league averages, there's about a $13 million gap in pass rusher. So we ain't spending as much as most of the other teams in defensive end. Let's look at that left tackle position again. $13.7 million gap versus the average. Not spending money at number 3 at left tackle because, again, we have Raimann on a rookie deal. Let's look at wide receiver. The Colts, for the entire wide receiver room as of right now, have about $12.9 million allocated to it. $12.9 million as of right now allocated to the wide receiver room for 2023 as far as cap hit dollars. The NFL average for 2023 going into the year, $25.9 million. We'll just round up, call it 26. It's about a $13 million gap. We're not spending money on weapons. We're not spending money on a pass rusher. We're not spending money on a left tackle. And we just cut bait with Matt Ryan. And obviously, we're going to take on the dead cap for this year. But again, we're, as of right now, still not paying the quarterback. And all of you Colts fans who have been in my comments talking about, Ricky, we need a Ricky. Then who are we paying? Who? I sound like an owl. Who? Right? Obviously, we're not paying the quarterback any money. So where is Ballard spending his money? Where is he spending his money? He's spending his money. We can go over that here right now. When we look at the interior linebacker position for 2023 in cap dollars, you can see the Colts obviously have about nearly $20 million allocated to that position in one player. Hopefully you can guess who that player is. That's Shaquille Leonard. Not at defensive end, but at that inside linebacker position where only C.J. Mosley of the Jets makes more money than him. And you can see there's quite a drop-off when you look at that inside linebacker position to where everybody else is. I think Tremont Edmonds just got his deal this offseason, and he's still not even close to Shaq. We're spending our money on inside linebacker, and we're spending top 2 money in the league on it this upcoming season. Okay, interesting, right? Big question mark, big Q, big question mark. Overall, if we take a look here, we can switch this to guard. If we switch this to guard, we can see this is just general, the most expensive guards in the league. You can obviously see Joe Tooney of the Kansas City Chiefs way up there, really offsetting the market. But you can see big question mark, big Quentin Nelson here, $12.2 million, top 7 in the league. Did his performance match that last year? I would say no. Overall in his career, did it? Absolutely. But again, something to keep in mind when we were going over those most important positions in the sport, as far as what we're trying to, or most important positions that, again, on the field, most people would argue your interior line position in guard. I'd argue how important that is. Obviously, you can see some teams like the Chiefs spending money on it, and obviously it pays off well for them. But again, something to keep in mind. We're spending top 10 money in the league on a guard. Again, when you talked about left tackle being obviously the blind side for most quarterbacks who are right-handed, if we look here at right tackle, you can see the Colts are number 3, spending $19 million, number 3 cap hit in the league, right tackle position, Mr. Braden Smith. Again, top 3 money in the league. Obviously, number 1, Lane Johnson. I don't think he's allowed a sack in how many years? Taylor Moton, not bad. Some of the other names on this list. But again, you can see the average here is about $7.9 million. Right? About $8 million. The Indianapolis Colts are paying 19. The average in the league is 8, or double that at the right tackle position. Let's keep that same energy. Let's keep it moving to center. This is, again, one of the most important, I wouldn't say the most important positions, but again, it's a position that is important. Obviously, you don't want to have issues getting the ball hiked. You don't want to see fumbles and stuff like that. But you can see here on average for 2023, as far as cap hit dollars, the average is about $6.2 million at this point. The Indianapolis Colts are 4th on that list with Ryan Kelly paying about, let's see where Ryan Kelly is. Ryan Kelly is projected to be the 4th biggest cap hit at the center position, making $12.4 million this year. Obviously, we've heard rumors of him potentially being traded, restructuring his contract, releasing, you name it. But again, what is all of this telling us? Chris Ballard's spending his money on the offensive line. If you look last year, if we flip this to 2022 and just go to offensive line here, you can see what team spent the most money on offensive line. The clown show behind me, the 4-12-1 clown show, right? That's the team that spent the most money on offensive line. If we take a look here at 2023, I think we dropped slightly. What are we at here? We dropped to the middle of the pack? No, where do we go? There we are at 7. You can see us down here at 7. Still a top 10 team in offensive line spending, so something to keep in mind there. Again, let's flip here to our next position. We talked about defensive tackle being a super important position as far as causing chaos up the middle, forcing that opposing quarterback to have to hopefully get rid of the ball quicker, throw them off their spot, et cetera, et cetera. You can see what team is number 1 in defensive tackle position spending. You talk about it. That's the Indianapolis Colts. The number 6 position we talked about on the list of most important. You can see down here at number 5, DeForest Buckner is coming in this year with a $19.7 million cap hit, nearly $20 million. His co-star, Grover Stewart, is at about $10.9 million. Let's round up and call it $11 million this year. The Indianapolis Colts have the 5th and 10th most expensive defensive tackle in the league this upcoming year. So we know where we're spending our money. Very interior defensive line and defensive tackle, which is a very important position. Don't get me wrong, especially for Gus Bradley's scheme. And then obviously we're spending all this money on our offensive line for, again, I would argue at the beginning of the year when we need that jump start and we need that energy the most, average play at best. Something else I wanted to get into here, again, touching on quarterback and or how much we spent on our offensive line. And just for reference here, hopefully you can see, if we look, Russell Wilson this past season in 2022 is the most sacked quarterback. Justin Fields 2, Kirk Cousins 3, Geno Smith 4, Dan Jones 5, Joe Burrow 6, Matt Ryan number 7. Only 12 games played. Everybody above him had way more games than him. Looks like they had at least 3 more. And Matt Ryan came in at 38 sacks. His inability to move his feet, extend plays, and move the pocket showed, right? No matter how much you spend on this offensive line, that'd be number 1 money last year. You could still have a top 7 sacked quarterback in the league again, if you can't dial up plays right. An interesting name, if I scroll down here a little bit, third from the bottom, that would be Lamar Jackson. 12 games played, the same as Matt Ryan. Oh, but would you look at that? 10 less sacks, if not more. But he's always injured. Matt Ryan was injured last year. Still got sacked a whole heck of a lot. Lamar, at least he's running for his life, right? At least he's trying his hardest. He's giving us his effort. He's not limited by his physical ability. And then here, we'll get into something else that I think is super duper interesting. Let's take a look here. Everybody's like, Lamar wants 45 million. Lamar wants 50 million. So again, let's look at the reality of the situation. If we look at this year, this 2023 season, we can see Mahomes is number 1. The clown show down in Nashville is number 2 at Ryan Tannehill. Going to pay him number 2 money in the league to do 50, like bottom 50% performance. I think most people would agree. But they're going to pay him top 2 money. This is Lamar's franchise tag. His non-exclusive is $32 million. He'd be number 3. There's Rodgers, who, again, I'm not Camp Rodgers, but I know a lot of you are. Russ Wilson, who I know a lot of people were, attached at the hip with last season. There's everybody's favorite Cousins, Kirk. There's Stafford, the Super Bowl winner. Again, significantly less money. I believe Josh Allen is there as well. But again, I believe they restructured a lot of their money. So again, Ballard, he's not just living in the present. His job should be planning for the future and looking ahead. Let's just go ahead and look at 2024 because I got a feeling it's not that far away. And let's just see what the quarterbacks next year are scheduled to make as far as cap hit. Deshaun Watson, $63 million. Right? Dak Prescott, $60 million. Kyler Murray, $52 million. Matt Stafford, nearly $50 million. Josh Allen, again, they tried pushing back some of that money. Eventually, it'll catch up with you. $47 million. Patrick Mahomes, $47 million. Dan Jones, he just signed that deal, $45 million. Rodgers, $40 million, and so on and so forth. So when people say, is Lamar really worth 45? 45 would be less than Mahomes, right about Dan Jones. Is Lamar better than these people above him? I would argue, yeah. Why? He has a playoff win. Again, Dak has a playoff win, but he's been doing it a lot longer than obviously Lamar has. Deshaun, I don't believe he has a playoff win. If he does, he only might have one. Stafford, obviously the Super Bowl ring as of recent, that can justify the cost. Josh Allen, the preseason MVP of 2022, let down, didn't win anything of that, barely beat the Dolphins, and again, choked it when it really mattered at home in his environment at Buffalo in the snow. But he's still worth 47 large, right? Just cause. Mahomes, obviously worth every penny there. But when people are like, am I making too much money? Can you also put next to it, Mahomes is making too much money, Josh Allen's making too much money, Kyler Murray's making too much money, XYZ? Or is it just the reality of the business? Is it just a new standard? I think it's just a new standard. I think it's just something you're going to have to realize as the salary cap continues to rise and the NFL continues to make more money, the quarterbacks are going to win a bigger portion again because they're the number 1 most important position on the field by far and away. So again, I haven't even looked at this one, but let's really get out there and let's look at 2025 just to see if I can't make some people cry in the comments. Again, look at it. Kyler, Derek, Patrick, same people. Russ Wilson going up to 55. All these same names, right? You can go down here and get a cheaper quarterback, but I don't want to get on the first Cousins ride. I'm definitely not getting on the Ryan Tannehill experience. Kenny Pickett, miss me. J-Mo, miss me too. Andy Dalton, no shot, no way. And so on and so forth. I'm sorry. I want to pay for the best. I want to pay for that guy. I don't want to be a bottom feeder, finger crossing and hoping down here with the Sam Howes, the Bailey Zappies, the Maliks, so on and so forth. But here's another point I was gonna bring up because I think it's super relevant. There's a couple guys on this list down here that are gonna get paid this offseason. Before this season kicks off, you can pencil it in. They're gonna get paid. Herbert, Burrow, and not Trevor this offseason, but Trevor will obviously be getting paid. Who's the other one? Jalen Hurts. That's who it is. Jalen Hurts, Herbert, and Burrow are all going to get paid this offseason. Do you think they're going to make less than Josh Allen or more? Do you think Joe Burrow is going to take less money than Josh Allen or more? You can say, oh, he's going to take less money to get more pieces around him, and maybe. But again, a lot of these guys are in the business of what? Setting the standard, taking the money. LeBron always taking the most money, right? So on and so forth. Like, these guys aren't just going to be working for no $20 million for their health, right? Their agents have a job too, right? So keep that in mind. Guys, like, do you want to pay, do you want to, again, pay now and potentially get that guy maybe on a couple $1 million less because you're able to negotiate earlier, or wait for all these other guys to get paid and then have to, again, negotiate with that? Because guys like Jalen, Burrow, and Herbert are going to sneak their way into this top 10. You betcha. You betcha. Again, it's clear as day, obvious as can be. All right, so we went over that. We're about to wrap up. Do I have the video in front of me? I don't, but I can pull it up real quick. Nah, I'm not going to get into the video on this segment. I'll probably do a separate video. It was a video of Jim Irsay at the end of the Jacksonville game in the 2021 season. It was in 2022, the Jacksonville game at the very beginning of the year in January. But one of the things he says, and I've referenced it here a couple times on the channel, is he said that the Colts season and the way it failed, it was unacceptable and will not stand. And then he followed that up with all chips in, period. Right? So I want to recap this. I've seen a lot of people who come in my comments and they're talking about Lamar costs too much money or Lamar's always injured, right? Those two things are opinions. When people say, I think, Lamar's not going to be able to play the back half of this year, he's going to be injured. Lamar's worth too much money. He wants $90 million. Well, if you're not talking to Lamar straight up, how do you know that's what he wants, right? How do you know that's what the market? If you've taken any economics class in your life, supply and demand, right? Just because Lamar thinks there's an endless supply of him, but there ain't no demand, right? That's where negotiation comes in. You can want whatever you want, but if you don't have enough bidders, right? You don't have enough bidders. So something to keep in mind when people give me their opinions, right, and their hypothesis is Lamar's going to be injured down the stretch. Lamar's worth too much money. Here's my reply to you. This is what I want you to think about, and we're wrapping up the video here. And this is my reply. You're giving me your opinion, something you feel, your feelings. My feelings, right? Lamar's not going to play. He's going to get hurt. Lamar's worth too much money. It's my money, and I want it now. Stop all that. Here's what I'm going to hit you with. I'm going to hit you with the facts, and here's what they are. The Colts haven't won their division since 2014. Fact. The Colts haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014. Fact. The last win versus the Tennessee Titans came in the year 2020. It is 2023. The last win versus the Tennessee Titans came in 2020. Fact. We haven't won in week 1 since 2013 versus a team that isn't even located in that city. They were the Oakland Raiders at the time. We haven't won in week 1 since 2013. Fact. Lamar won't play at the end of the year because he's going to get hurt. Lamar got too much money. Those are your opinions. Thank you for sharing. We've heard it before. Save me. Save me. Stick to the facts. Haven't won in week 1. Haven't beaten the Titans. Haven't won in Jacksonville. These are the things that matter, right? If you're not willing to bring in a guy who's willing to change that tomorrow, like a guy like Lamar is, you're addicted to losing. That's what you are. I'm willing to call you the viewer. You're addicted to losing. You're stuck in your box and you're not willing to think outside of it. Doesn't mean Lamar is the perfect solution. Absolutely not. Right? But the people who just close their mind and comment, wah, 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 without watching the video and listening to exactly what I'm saying, let's keep it moving. We'll wrap it up. The status quo won't keep working. Losing sucks. 4-12-1 was our record last year. We had 2 games to win and you're in 2021 at the end of the year against the Raiders and the Jags and couldn't do either. Sick and tired of it. The status quo will not continue to work. We got to think outside the box. Every stone has to get looked at. No stone left unturned. And here's my final take, and I'm gonna hit you with it. If I'm Jim Irsay and I'm writing checks, this is what I would do. Obviously, if I was in his shoes, again, this is my personal opinion. I ain't writing another guaranteed check, another guaranteed dollar to anybody who's been on this team for the past however many years until some of these things start changing. Until we win in week 1, until you come out and show me you won it, I ain't paying another one of you. Until you can show me in Jacksonville, you're foaming at the mouth, you want to win so bad, you're not getting another dollar out of my checkbook. Until you beat the Titans, Ryan Tannehill was dragging that leg. I was in Nashville. He was hurter than hurt. We couldn't get to him. We couldn't win that game, right? Can't win in week 1, can't beat the Titans, haven't won in Jacksonville since 2014, haven't won our division since 2014. Nobody's getting a contract extension. Nobody is until some of these things start to change. Not a dollar, not a dime. That's called the status quo. You're living in it if you want to run it back. If you want to run it back with these same guys, you got to scare the life into them, okay? You got to let them know this ain't your grandpa's Indianapolis Colts. I started a new Facebook page. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. It's called New Age Indianapolis Colts Fans. This is a new generation. This is a new way of thinking. Analytics, data, moving forward. This ain't your grandpa's Colts, right? We got to think different. We got to think outside the box. He's going to get hurt. Me. We don't win. We don't win consistently, and we don't win often, and we don't win in week 1. We don't beat the Texans last year. We haven't beaten the Titans since 2020. Think outside the box. The status quo won't work. It will not work. Get it through your head. And until next time, I appreciate all the support. Thank you.